Number 7. James H. Legge. Georgia woman Rose Campbell was pulled over in the city of Alpharetta on May the 4th of 2018 after swerving into a police officer's lane and nearly causing a collision. The 65-year-old was subsequently issued a citation for failure to maintain lane. The officer then presented Campbell with a ticket and told her to sign it. As per state law, it would have served as an acknowledgement that she'd been made properly aware of her alleged offense as well as of the date and time of her scheduled court appearance. Campbell refused to provide her signature, however, as she believed that doing so would have constituted an admission of guilt. In a video captured by the officer's body camera, the woman was shown requesting to speak with a supervisor after she'd been asked to exit her vehicle. The officer then called for backup, and as other members of law enforcement arrived at the scene, the situation rapidly escalated. Campbell attempted to shut her driver's side door, but one of the officers, James H. Legge, forcefully pushed it back open and began yelling at her. He also indicated that the car's tinted windows were making him fear for his safety. Officer Legge then shouted a barrage of profanities at Campbell as he demanded she get out of her car. The volatile traffic stop culminated with the officer grabbing the woman by the arm and forcefully dragging her out of the vehicle before placing her in handcuffs. In the wake of the incident, the Alpharetta Police Department opened an internal investigation into the matter, which ultimately led to Officer Legge resigning from his position. Number 6. The shooting of Charles Glloway. Shortly after 12 a.m. on January the 23rd of 2022, Harris County Deputy Charles Glloway initiated a traffic stop on a white Toyota Avalon in southwest Houston. As was later gathered from eyewitness testimony, the driver got out of the vehicle while Glloway was still in his patrol car and immediately opened fire. The officer was struck by multiple bullets and succumbed to his injuries at the scene. The gunman, identified as 51-year-old Oscar Rosales, fled in his vehicle after the ambush attack. Following a brief manhunt, the suspect was located at a hotel in Ciudad de Acuña, Mexico, where he was placed under arrest and charged with capital murder. It subsequently emerged that Rosales had been a fugitive from justice in Harris County ever since he'd absconded from his parole following an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon conviction in 1995. Rosales had also been wanted in connection to a murder previously committed in El Salvador, and the authorities revealed an intention of contacting other Central American countries to notify them of his capture. 4 additional people faced criminal charges for allegedly trying to cover up Rosales' involvement in Galloway's killing. The slain officer, who'd been a 12-year veteran of the force and a field trainer, was honored during a public funeral ceremony that included a 21-gun salute and a helicopter flyover. Number 5. Haley Marie Aiken. On January the 10th of 2019, as she was traveling northbound down Interstate 45 in Conroe, Texas, Haley Marie Aiken was pulled over by a state trooper for driving erratically. Subsequent reports detailed how as soon as the officer had exited his patrol car and begun to approach Aiken's vehicle, the 22-year-old sped away from the scene. The trooper rushed back in his car and pursued the suspect, who was eventually tracked down after exiting the interstate onto Gladstone Street. According to the resulting arrest report, Aiken had displayed clear signs of intoxication while being evaluated by the officer, and she allegedly had difficulty standing up after getting out of her vehicle. She was consequently taken into custody and charged with evading arrest with a vehicle, driving while intoxicated, and bribery. The latter charge stemmed from the young woman allegedly offering money to the state trooper in exchange for a release, a proposition which he promptly rejected. Number 4. Michael McGillis. Mariah Valenzuela was pulled over by a police officer in Phoenix, Arizona for crossing over the painted center line prior to making a left turn in January of 2020. As was captured on Officer Michael McGillis' body cam, he'd initiated his interaction with the 23-year-old by requesting her license. Venezuela responded by claiming she didn't have any form of identification with her and demanded an explanation for the traffic stop. The officer, who later described the young woman as verbally non-compliant to investigators, was then heard telling her to place her hands behind her back before reaching for his handcuffs. A brief struggle subsequently ensued, in the course of which Officer McGillis caused Valenzuela to topple to the ground. He then pulled the young woman to her feet and handcuffed her as she protested his use of force. After Valenzuela continued to argue with him, the officer shoved her against the side of her car and asked why she refused to act like a young lady. Following her arrest, Valenzuela was charged with numerous offenses, including resisting arrest and DUI, in spite of the fact that her blood alcohol level was reported as being well below the legal driving limit. Prosecutors later reduced her charges to a single traffic ticket for failing to drive on the right side of the road. In July of 2020, Valenzuela launched a civil complaint against Officer McGillis, alleging false arrest and imprisonment. She also came forward with the footage from her brutal run-in with the officer, which had left her with bruises all over her body. According to ABC 15 in Arizona, Officer McGillis had been the subject of multiple formal complaints from people who reported he'd used foul language or unnecessary force during traffic stops in the past. Number 3. Holly Hurt. At approximately 6:30 p.m. on March the 2nd of 2021, an Indiana state trooper in Evansville initiated a traffic stop with a moped rider who'd been operating the vehicle without lights. Upon asking the female driver a series of routine questions, the officer, only identified as Trooper Stewart, recorded that she was driving with a suspended license and expired plates. Stewart also noted that the 37-year-old, who was later named as Boonville resident Holly Hurt, had been showing visible signs of impairment throughout their interaction. The officer thus conducted a sequence of field sobriety tests, during which Hurt allegedly attacked him. She kicked and bit Stewart before he was eventually able to restrain her and place her in handcuffs. Both Stewart and Hurt were subsequently treated for minor injuries at Ascension St. Vincent Hospital, after which the latter was transported to Vanderburgh County Jail, where she was held without bond. Hurt was ultimately charged with operating a vehicle while intoxicated, resisting law enforcement, and battery on a police officer, which is a Class 6 felony in the state of Indiana. Number 2. The arrest of Shibani Balsava and Shilani Sen. Shilani Sen was helping her friend Shibani Balsava move into a new apartment in Los Angeles, California. On February the 8th of 2020, when the U-Haul truck they'd rented was pulled over by the police. Balsava, a film producer, later detailed how she and Sen were confused by the stop, as they hadn't committed any traffic violations. Within moments of the traffic stop being initiated, several additional police vehicles arrived at the scene, and at least 10 members of law enforcement reportedly surrounded the U-Haul with their guns drawn. The occupants of the vehicle were ordered to get out and walk into the middle of the street with their hands above their heads. As Sen and Balsava complied with law enforcement's demands, they reportedly noticed that a police helicopter was flying overhead as well. The two women were forced to lay in the road with their limbs spread apart for several minutes before they were eventually approached by officers. Balsava later claimed that one of the officers thrusted their knee into her lower back and pushed her head down as they then yanked her arms back and handcuffed her. She and Sen were pulled to their feet and pinned against the side of a patrol car, with guns aimed at them, at which point they were informed that the U-Haul they were driving had previously been reported stolen. Balsava told them that her receipt from the rental truck company was in her purse. Once officers retrieved it from the front seat of the vehicle and ran the two women's names through the police database, Sen and Balsava were released without being charged. It later emerged that U-Haul had reported that the stolen vehicle was recovered, and Los Angeles police had therefore initiated the traffic stop erroneously. In May of 2021, it was reported that Sen and Balsava were filing a federal lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles and its police department, accusing the officers at the scene that day of excessive force, unreasonable search and seizure, negligence, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Number 1. Mohammed Rodwan. Police Constable Stuart Alton pulled over an uninsured white van in Leighton, East London on August the 7th of 2019. During what the 29-year-old officer had expected to be a routine traffic stop, he was viciously attacked by the driver of the vehicle, later identified as Mohammed Rodwan, aged 59. The latter repeatedly struck the officer in the head with a 2-foot-long machete, which was reported as having a rusty blade. Although PC Alton had suffered several critical injuries in the onslaught, including 6 deep puncture head wounds and multiple skull fractures. He ultimately managed to deploy his taser in his attacker's direction. The weapon successfully subdued Rodwan and allowed the officer to call for assistance. In January of the following year, Rodwan was acquitted of attempted murder following a trial at the Old Bailey. He was, however, convicted of wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm and consequently imprisoned for a term of 16 years. In the aftermath of the incident, Officer Alton was dubbed Britain's hardest cop due to the manner he'd handled the situation. It was also reported that he'd been awarded the National Police Federation Bravery Award for single-handedly fighting off his attacker after having sustained multiple stab wounds and bone fractures. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have a police car driving behind you at all times, or risk your pants falling down at any given time when walking around in public? Let us know in the comments section below.